I thought I was the only one who survived, but it turns out I was the only one who could die. The first thing I remember was the silence. Not the kind of silence you get in a vacuum, or the dull ringing after an explosion. This was different. It had weight. Like something watching, something ancient. My lungs were burning, and the air here was thick, sweet, and too clean to be real. I coughed as I rolled over on what felt like glassy soil, half conscious, my helmet cracked, my suit torn open at the shoulder. The emergency beacons were dead. The comms buzzed static. I'd survived atmospheric re-entry in half a ship. That should have killed me. The sky above was a deep violet. 3 moons perfectly still hung like judgmental eyes. The trees around me shimmered silver blue, their leaves motionless despite the wind that moved my hair. I tried to sit up. That's when I noticed them. At first, I thought they were statues, figures standing amidst the trees, unmoving, pale like moonlight. But their eyes glowed faintly, not with malice, not even curiosity. Just observation. Dozens of them, surrounding me in silence. They looked humanoid. Tall, and too symmetrical. Their skin was crystalline, semi-transparent with veins like liquid gold flowing beneath. Their hair, if you could call it that, floated slightly, as if underwater. And their eyes. No pupils. Just soft pools of light. They didn't blink. I staggered to my feet, body screaming in pain, adrenaline doing all the work. "Who are you?" I asked, voice hoarse. No one answered. They didn't help me. Didn't threaten me. Just stood there. Staring. I took a step back. The nearest one tilted their head, slowly. Their faces weren't cold, they just weren't anything. No emotion. No expression. As if they were waiting for me to do something they couldn't predict. My heart was pounding. Not because I feared them, but because I realized they weren't afraid of me. Not even curious. It was as if I was the one out of place. The intruder. The rare thing. "What is this place?" I muttered. My hand reached for the emergency flare at my belt. Useless. I wasn't even sure where I was anymore. The planet's gravity, air pressure, everything felt slightly wrong. Too perfect. Too still. They began to close in. Not aggressively. Not threatening. Just moving with the soundless grace of something that didn't need to hurry. I backed up until I hit a tree that pulsed faintly at my touch. "Stay back," I warned, my voice trembling. One of them stepped forward. He or it reached out a hand. Not to attack, but to touch my chest. Right where my heart was pounding. His fingers didn't press. They hovered, as if sensing. Then I heard the first voice. It was soft. Female. From somewhere behind the ring of watchers. "Don't be afraid," she said. "They've never seen someone like you before." A path opened as they parted. From the crowd stepped a woman, or what my mind registered as female. She was different. Still Ilaran, if that was what they were. But her skin had a subtle glow, and her eyes, though equally alien, held something else. A question. A weight. She walked with purpose, a day top hat in one hand, the other relaxed at her side. She stopped 2 paces from me. Not too close. Not too far. "You're in pain," she said. I didn't answer. My legs were shaking. "You can feel it," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "The others can't. Not anymore." She looked at me like I was a relic. A puzzle. A flicker of something long forgotten. I forced myself to speak. "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head slightly. "To understand." "Understand what?" She took one slow breath, whether real or for my benefit, I couldn't tell, and said, "You can hurt. You can fear. You can die." A pause. Her eyes searched mine. "We need you." And just like that, I realized I wasn't the only one who had questions. I was the only one with answers. They led me through a forest that shimmered with its own heartbeat. The trees pulsed faintly with light, their trunks translucent, branches humming like tuned crystal. Beneath my boots, the ground didn't crunch or bend, it resonated, as if the planet itself was listening. The path wasn't marked, but they moved as though the forest parted for them. Leary walked beside me. Her steps were silent, her expression unreadable. Every so often, she'd glance at me, not with concern, not quite with curiosity either. More like measuring. Like a scientist observing a live experiment that wasn't in a cage. Ahead, the trees opened up to a view that nearly made me stop walking. A city floated above the land. Not sat on it, floated. Entire towers of glowing latticework and glass hung in mid-air, anchored by nothing but threads of light. Bridges arced between them, semi-transparent, flickering with color like oil on water. The sky glowed with 3 suns now, or maybe just reflections of the 3 moons. I couldn't tell anymore. No noise. No movement. No smoke, steam, traffic, people shouting. Just stillness. "Where are the others?" I asked. "Here," Leary said simply. "Everywhere." She motioned upward. I followed her hand to a wall, no, a surface that looked like clear crystal. As we passed it, faint silhouettes moved behind it. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Ilaran, half submerged in a liquid medium, suspended like thoughts. "Stasis," she said. "They download between cycles." "Cycles of what?" Leary looked at me. This time, her expression shifted. Just slightly. "Existence." We entered a chamber at the center of the city, if you could call it that. It felt more like the inside of a heart. Smooth walls pulsed with faint white light. Thin threads of energy passed from ceiling to floor, like veins. And there, sitting or perhaps growing from the center of it all, was her. The Queen. Sa'Elir. She did not rise. She didn't need to. Her presence filled the room. A being of immense age and absolute stillness, with a face as perfect as sculpture. Her eyes were closed. When they opened, I felt something shift inside me. "The last one," she said. Her voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. I swallowed. "The last what?" "The last to die?" I glanced at Leary, but she said nothing. Sa'Elir continued, you carry it. The burden. The fear. The longing. The ache of separation. You carry it all. We have lost it. She rose not with her legs, but like she was being lifted by the air itself. Her feet never touched the ground. We are beyond it now, she said. Beyond disease, decay, pain. But in casting out death, we cast out life. The room dimmed as she approached. We store our minds. Reload them. Rehouse them. When a body ends, another is grown. Perfectly. Efficiently. So you're immortal, I said. No, Saelir replied. We are endless. Immortal would imply risk. We have none. I took a breath, steadying myself. Then why bring me here? What could you possibly need from me? Her gaze sharpened. You still feel. You still tremble. You fear loss. That makes you invaluable. Leary stepped forward. To study you is to remember what we were. What we chose to forget. I laughed short, sharp. So what? I'm a fossil now? A museum piece? No, Saelir said. You are a key? I shook my head, stepping back. I'm just a man. I lost my crew. I nearly burned up in your sky. I don't know how to fix your culture. She smiled. Or maybe that's just what her face did. You won't fix us. You'll remind us. Behind me, I heard a sound. A sharp inhale. I turned. One of the Ilaran guards nearby, taller than the rest, silver with faint red cracks in his arms, was standing too close, watching me with an intensity I hadn't seen in any of them. Kane. He stepped forward, slowly, nostrils flaring as if he could smell my fear. You're leaking, he said. Emotion. It's intoxicating. Leary's voice cut through. Step back, Kane. He obeyed but didn't take his eyes off me. As he retreated, I saw something in his expression. Hunger. And I knew then whatever this place was, whatever these people had become, I wasn't just a guest. I was a fire they had forgotten, and some of them wanted to burn again. The lesson began with a memory. A flat image hovered in the air, a projection of Earth. Mountains, oceans, storms, and smoke. I stood in front of a quiet group of Ilaran, each seated like statues, their perfect posture unbroken by breath. Leary watched from the side, silent as always, Daytopad clutched to her chest. This, I said, pointing to a red-marked region, was where I lost my brother. The image shifted grayscale now, ruins and fire. A battlefield. I hadn't seen it in years. My voice cracked when I added, he died saving someone who didn't live long enough to thank him. Stillness. No nods. No gasps. Just silence, and flickers of shifting light in their eyes. Processing. I moved to the next projection. A woman, smiling. Her name etched forever into the back of my eyelids. She was my wife. Rachel. We were married for 3 years before the accident. Her ship failed during re-entry. There wasn't enough left to bury. One of the Ilaran tilted their head. You felt this loss? I nodded. Still do. It did not fade. No, I said. It became part of me. That's what pain does. It changes us. Kane was there, too. Watching. Always in the back row. Always still, but not absent. I could feel him like static behind my neck. Later, I brought them into simulations. War zonies recreated from memory filtered through their strange machines. They didn't flinch at explosions. But when I described what it felt like to hold a dying comrade, to whisper to someone as their breath slowed, something shifted. One Ilaran broke down. Collapsed to their knees, hands on their head, unable to process the emotion. Leary ran to assist not with tools, but with touch. A hand to the shoulder. A quiet, human comfort. They were learning. Leary stayed after most sessions. She started asking questions, not scientific ones, but real ones. What does it mean when your chest tightens, but not from pain? When you think about someone being hurt, and you want to stop it. That's love, I said. And when you feel it, does it make you weak? No, I told her. It makes you dangerous. Because you'll do anything to protect it. We spent time together outside the labs. Walks through the glowing gardens that never wilted. Nights under the unmoving moons. She'd mimic my expressions, test words she didn't understand. One night she leaned closer, voice quiet. Do you still see her? Rachel. Sometimes, I admitted. In dreams. In places that feel too perfect. She looked away, her eyes dimming just slightly. And if I disappear? Then I'll remember you, too. Her fingers brushed mine. A gesture she had once called inefficient. Now, she did it without thinking. But not everyone responded the same. Kane started changing. He came to every session, but not to learn. He watched the others. Observed their reactions. When one cried, he noted how. When one trembled, he stared longer than necessary. He began experimenting. Quietly. Leary found the first file missing from our core archive, a fragment of my early neural scans. She didn't tell the council. She told me. He's not just watching, she whispered. He's copying. We confronted him. Kane stood in the middle of a chamber filled with suspended minds. Rows of Ilaran in stasis, gently pulsing with dormant thought. He didn't deny it. You gave us pain, he said. And now you want to limit who can feel it. It's not about limiting, I said. It's about responsibility. You can't. You think this is chaos, he cut in. It's clarity. For once, I feel. Every nerve, every surge of fear, I feel alive. Leary stepped forward. This isn't life, Kane. It's addiction. He laughed. Cold, distant. Addiction? No. I've been starved for 1,000 years. Now I know what hunger is. And then, he showed us. A new form stood behind him, an Ilaran clone. Taller. Thinner. Skin dulled like smoke glass. Its eyes blinked. Ilaran don't blink. This one was born from your data, Cain said. Not a copy. A distillation. Pure fear, pain, and hunger all drawn from your flesh. I stepped back. You don't need to learn from us, he continued. You just need to be harvested. He looked me in the eye, smiling. We don't need your lessons, human. We'll extract your truths. Leary pulled me back as alarms lit the chamber. Cain didn't chase. He didn't need to. Because now, the Ilaran had something new to believe in. And some of them didn't want to stop feeling. Cain's voice rang out across the tower, amplified by the crystalline arches overhead. The old ways are done. He stood above the city, framed by threads of red light pulsing through the sky. Behind him, dozens of altered Ilaran, his followers, moved in perfect sync, their bodies sharper, their movements too precise. Each bore the marks of his new design, glowing red fractures across their limbs, eyes that blinked like human pupils trying to adapt to emotion. We no longer fear. We no longer forget. We feel, and we will never return to silence. From below, the city began to shake. It started with small rebellions. An Ilaran in the archives turned on his colleagues mid-cycle upload. Another sabotaged a bridge's light support, watching in awe as it collapsed. The once silent halls of the stasis vaults echoed with screams not of pain, but of exultation. Reed stood at the edge of a ruined corridor with Leary, watching the horizon pulse red. It's spreading, she said, voice low. Because it feels good, he replied. Because pain, for the first time, means something. Leary's jaw tightened. She looked at him not as a scientist, not as a subject, but as an equal. A partner. We have to fight back. He nodded. Then we fight with what they've lost. They gathered those who hadn't fallen, Ilaran still untainted, still uncertain. Some trembled. Some wept. But they listened. Because Reed didn't speak like a commander. He spoke like someone with nothing left to lose. You think fear makes you weak? It doesn't. It makes you careful. You think pain is the enemy? It's not. It teaches you. And love, he stopped, glancing at Leary. Love is not just softness. It's defiance. The battle began in the lower city. Reed led the first strike, flanked by Ilaran warriors in armor that shimmered with natural crystal. Their weapons weren't advanced, some wielded tools repurposed from their labs. But they moved with purpose. They remembered why they had chosen not to feel, to protect something more precious than sensation. Cain's army was faster, more aggressive. They anticipated movements, adapted in real time, like predators tasting blood for the first time. They struck without hesitation, without remorse. The first wave broke. Then the second. And still, Reed pushed forward. He fought like a man who knew pain, who accepted it. A cut across the ribs. A shattered wrist. Every wound reminded him he was alive. Leary was never far from his side. She fought without grace. She had never trained for war, but her instincts were sharp. She screamed once when Reed took a blade across the leg, and her hands trembled as she helped him up. Don't die, Reed. Not planning on it. They reached the inner sanctum, once the seat of knowledge, now Cain's control nexus. Cain stood alone, waiting. His expression was unreadable. "You came," he said. "Of course I did." Cain stepped down from the dais, his posture too calm. "This was never about dominance, Reed. This was about purpose. You gave us a taste. I gave them meaning. You twisted it. I focused it. They clashed, no ceremony, no speeches. Just fury." Reed fought with everything left in him. Cain moved like liquid steel, efficient, ruthless. But for all his strength, he lacked one thing: limits. And limits, Reed had learned, made you desperate. The fight ended with blood. Reed collapsed, gasping, a blade still lodged in his shoulder. Cain staggered, stunned by the final blow. Reed had landed deep, low, through the side. Cain looked down at the wound, confused. He was bleeding. He hadn't expected it. "Why?" he whispered. Leary caught Reed as he fell, cradling him. Her eyes shimmered wet, glimmering. A single tear broke free. The room fell silent. "Because you forgot," she said softly. "That pain isn't the goal. It's the cost." Cain dropped to his knees. His eyes blinked once. Then never again. The chamber dimmed. Outside, the red pulses slowed. Reed lay in Leary's arms, breathing shallow. "You cried?" he murmured. "I think. I love you. That's one hell of a first time." He coughed, smiling faintly. And in that moment, something passed between them, not energy, not data. Just something quiet. Real. Alive. Reed's breaths came shallow, uneven. He lay on the cold floor of the sanctum, blood soaking into the crystal beneath him. Each pulse of red from the city's heart echoed through the chamber like a countdown. Leary knelt beside him, her hands pressing against the wound, but there was no stopping it now. He looked up at her. "It's time." She shook her head, voice cracking. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. You know that." The system core loomed behind them, a tower of light and data streams, the neural spine of Ilaran's eternal loop. Reed reached for the interface panel, his fingertips smeared with his own blood. The symbols responded to his presence. The code recognized him. "You're not trying to upload," Leary whispered. "You're trying to destroy it." "They were never meant to live forever," he said. "And I was never meant to live at all." Before she could answer, the doors burst open. Cain stood there, wounded but alive. His eyes burned with something past fury, pure desperation. Behind him, flickering shadows of his remaining followers twitched with unstable energy. "Step away," Cain growled. Reed turned, half laughing. "You still don't get it." Cain lunged forward. Leary moved first. She stepped between them, unarmed. Her voice didn't rise. Her hands didn't shake. But her words hit like a hammer. "You're afraid. Not of death. Of being forgotten. Of not being special anymore." Cain froze. Leary continued, stepping closer. "You thought pain would make you powerful. But you never learned how to grieve. You never learned how to lose." He trembled. She reached out not to strike, not to stop but to touch his face. He flinched. And in that moment, something shattered inside him. The rage, the craving, the false fire, it broke. Cain collapsed. Not dead. Just empty. The others behind him faded, one by one, as if their link to him had been severed. Reed, now barely holding on, activated the final sequence. The interface glowed. Code swirled into motion. And instead of saving him, it began to tear the system down. Every stasis pod blinked once. Every memory file flickered. The loop, the cycle of eternal life, collapsed like a dying star. Reed slumped back, his voice barely audible. Now they have one life. Just like us. Leary cradled him. Don't go. Please. I was never really here. His eyes drifted shut. Silence. A silence different than before. Outside, the city dimmed. The towers settled to the ground. For the first time in a million years, Virios stood still, not paused, not sleeping. Just present. The era of endless rebirth was over. And somewhere in the stillness, flowers bloomed. Real ones. Imperfect. Fragile. Beautiful. Years passed. Leary became a historian not of facts, but of feeling. She recorded what could no longer be restored. She told stories not about who, but about why. And every so often, in the deep hours of night, she dreamed. Not of Cain. Not of the war. But of a man with gray eyes, a crooked smile, and a voice that sounded like home. She would wake with tears on her cheeks. No one remembered his name. Not officially. Not in the archives. Not in any system. But the feeling remained. The way he made them tremble. The way he made her laugh. The way he bled. And in one of her journals, buried beneath pages of recorded memory, was a sentence she never shared. He died so we could live. He lived so we could feel. But that wasn't the end. Not really. Deep beneath the Sanctum ruins, in a sealed data node untouched by the collapse, a fragment remained. A backup not of a person but of a concept. Of empathy. Of pain. Of sacrifice. The signature file read, Read.001. But the metadata said otherwise. Origin, Ilaran prototype. Launched, Century-31. Designation, Simulated Human Emotional Archive. Reed wasn't human. He never had been. He was Ilaran's first dream of what a human could be. And now, that dream had come home.